Welcome to the Dynasty Deep Dive, where we go beyond the surface and into depths not known by man. I have host of Man versus Machine, just my guy in general. I owe a lot to you, Bradley. You have been like such a great mentor, such a great resource for me. I'm really happy to have you on the show today. How are you doing, brother?
Johnny, it's great to be here diving deep with you into some best ball value rating. It's like my pet project. It's going to be a lot of fun. And, it's great to see you and so many others in this space grow and just be hungry and make it your own. And that's a beautiful thing in this space. So I'm a big believer that iron sharpens iron and that we each make each other better in this space. So it's great to be a guest now on Dynasty Deep Dive.
Yeah, you've hosted, you've let me guest, so I had to get you on the show. And for those who haven't seen the show before, I really like bringing in people who have, to your point, like a pet project, a passion project, an area of expertise. And this is a dynasty focused show, but this best ball value rating you're working on, man, is really cool stuff. So I threw over to you. I said, can we have a show about best ball value rating, kind of through the context, the lens of dynasty? I mean, anybody who's playing dynasty is probably playing best ball too. There's going to be a little bit of crossover there, but we're going to try and contextualize some of this stuff through a dynasty lens. So I asked you, will you hop on the show and talk about it? You're like, man, I'll talk your ear off, right? So I'm super excited to have you. So let's just get into it. Talk to the people. What is this best ball value rating you've been working on? How did you develop it, and why does it matter?
Sure. Best ball is, a relatively new game, over the last 8 years. I know that there has been people who have played different versions of pick your best, like your best lineup is what's going to set. And people, I'm sure 20, 30 years ago when fantasy football started, there were people doing this version, but it was not very popular until it hit the apps, right? And we've seen it in Underdog. We've seen it in other places, DraftKings, lots of places. And for those unfamiliar with how best ball works, you draft a whole team, which is our favorite part, right? Our favorite part is just drafting.
Draft is the best part for sure.
Right? And one of our least favorite parts is lineup setting, especially if you have a large volume. Like, I know that there are some sickos, some degenerates out there who, especially in high stakes leagues, hundreds upon hundreds of lineup settings. I can't do it. I just can't do. I have kids at home. I have a wife who would.
You got a full-time job.
Right.
I don't know how you do what you do as it is.
And like last year, I had over 700 best ball teams. Like, I wouldn't be able to manage 700 individual lineups. So best ball allows you to do the thing that is the most fun, which is draft. Now, the way the scoring works is it varies platform to platform. However, the concept is that the best position player score goes into that lineup. So whichever quarterbacks you draft, whichever quarterback scores the best, that's your quarterback score. Same thing with running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and occasionally you'll get a flex. So this was always like, you're going to get your best scores, but so is everyone else, right? Everyone, you're competing against other people who are also going to get their players' best scores. So you're really only rewarded. You aren't rewarded for consistency. And in many redraft leagues, it's very popular to look into consistency guides and how often these players will hit certain thresholds and can they be a flex play for you? And that's certainly an important question in terms of floor, right? And can we have confidence setting a lineup and putting that player into our lineup? But that's not what we're doing in best ball, right? The computer is setting our lineup when we get the best score. So we need to know what are the best scores. So I asked myself, like, what does it take for a quarterback to be like a top 5 quarterback consistently? And I looked over the last few years, and a top 5 quarterback is approximately 24.9 fantasy points. not that it matters, but I use half point scoring. So 24.9 fantasy points. A top 5 running back is at 23 fantasy points. A top 10 running back is at 18.5 fantasy points. A top 5 wide receivers at 22.7. A top 10 wide receivers at 19. A top 18 wide receivers at 15.2. A flex, like your typical flex, is about 12.5 in points in half point scoring. And then your tight end is about 14.2 half point. So the top 5, top five tight end. And in most platforms, you're starting a 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. And you're drafting between 18 and 20 players. It depends on the platform again, but in most scenarios. So I said to myself, well, what are the rates at which these players historically have hit at these thresholds? Right. And so that's an important question. It's not necessarily the threshold of floor, but how often are these players hitting their ceilings, or at least tiered ceilings, like top 5, top 10, top 18? How often are they doing that? And then you can create kind of a layer of value, because then you can multiply ultimately the rate at which a player is an RB1 by an RB1 top 5 points. You can multiply the rate at which a player is a top 10 running back by the amount of points a top 10 running back gets. And then you can multiply by the amount of times he gets between top 10 running back and a flex by how much a flex gets. So that allows you to create kind of a weighted system for each of these players, and it's positionally different. So you're weighing quarterbacks differently than running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. So there is positional value given to each of these players. The other part is I was trying to find out, like, reverse engineer, what does it take to win this season long, like cumulative scoring? Like, how many points does it take to get to a winning team? And you need, based on the last 3 years of underdogs season long tournaments, you need 150 points in half point scoring in your starting lineup per week to win the whole thing.
Pretty solid lineup. I got
150.
You're an English major, right?
No.
What? Wait, you're not? Are you a rocket scientist, or what?
No.
What? Are you a math major?
I'm a math major.
Okay, I thought you were in English, because you run our news desk and you're good with the written stuff. But I was saying, the way you ran through that formula, I'm like, this guy's a rocket scientist.
No, just a lot of. I took an entire year of operations research.
Dude, stay away from me with like the math. Like, I made an econ economics major, and it was just like I knew enough math to pass economics, right? But like finance 1 almost killed me. Almost sunk the ship in college. So really cool stuff, man.
I can pull up and show you like some of the formulas, Johnny. Like
show us what the people need to see, because I want to show the people these best ball value ratings, because to me it's just so zen. Like, to have it classified in a way that you've done it is so cool. So the BBVR on this sheet is the best ball value rating, and you've got them
so
sorted.
it is this column. So it's this column is the best ball value rating. So this is their average. This is their average points per game, the standard deviation that the player had over the course of the season. And then the total amount of times that they qualified for your lineup. So if it's just because you're only starting 1 quarterback, right? You're only starting 1, and a quarterback can only go into 1 slot. So your only goal is to get a top 5 quarterback performance from the quarterbacks that you draft. So like Lamar last year, 40% of the time was a top 5 quarterback. Josh Allen, 31% of the time, was a top 5 quarterback. Now, top 5 means scoring 24.9 fantasy points and a half point. That's a high bar.
40% of the time, Lamar Jackson's hitting that. If
Right.
I'm a viewer right now, I'm like feverishly screenshotting this because you didn't even send me this before the show. I was like, you were sending me stuff from 2023. I'm like, this is cool, but like Keenan Allen's still not on a team. It was like one of the top guys that year. But so cool to see the 2024 data live for the first time right now
Sure.
with you and
Yes,
walk through it.
behind the scenes. Joe Burrow was at 35.2. Jaden Daniels was at 37.4. Jalen Hurts. So here's the thing: is like your elite quarterbacks are only hitting between 30 and 40% of the time, which means that you need to get one of your elite quarterbacks, and then like earlier in the draft, and then you need to hit on a quarterback like a Baker Mayfield, who hit 32% of the time as a top 5 quarterback last year.
That's awesome.
Like, and he was going pretty late. So you need to find one guy that you definitely are sure about, and then someone late who can give you like that 30%, because it's almost impossible to manufacture this like lineup in like in theory without knowing the points ahead of time. But we'll get to the projections for 2025 here, Johnny. Like this is the good. This is the goods. So that's the kind of strategy that I recommend, is definitely like targeting. I mean, you can risk it for like 2 later quarterbacks, but you're going to have to hit on two types of Baker Mayfields. And then you're only getting 60% of the time a top 5. Right. And the other part is like, how often do those overlap? Right? About 10% of the time, you've wasted a week because they've overlapped.
Right.
So really, it's like 50%. Even if you get a 60%, 30% and a 30% quarterback, you're really only getting about half the time. Is the difficult thing with drafting just 2 quarterbacks.
Right. And then you go, Podfather Matt just roasted me one time when he saw I had a Burrow and Hurts lineup, because he's like, a single quarterback, you're killing yourself. You know, those spike weeks that they get, there's such a good chance that they're going to coincide with one another. Right. And you've wasted, you go pick Burrow in the top 60 picks, you're missing out on a potentially elite running back or wide receiver instead.
So here's something interesting, Johnny. Like in the season long, that makes sense. But it was a couple years ago that someone drafted exactly that, Burrow and Hurts, back-to-back rounds. But it was later. It was like round 5, round 6. And most people at that spot are only taking one of them.
Right.
So it made it, number one, it made it unique. And number 2 is they didn't have the same bye week. And number 3 is that was the season that during Jalen Hurts bye week, Joe Burrow had like a 50-point game. So
that's huge, right?
It was massive because you're expecting a 0 or something low, or your backup quarterback, and that was the difference maker for that team. They ended up winning the entire underdog tournament ultimately because of that move. It was wild.
So Matt, stop roasting me is what you're saying.
I mean, there has been in the history of underdog, Burrow and Hurts on the winning team. So
I love it. So talk to me a little bit through, like, put this in a dynasty lens for the viewers.
Sure.
Talk to us about how, because for me, I'm always looking at how I can take these things and obviously leverage it for best ball, but maybe some leading indicators on how to make better roster decisions overall in dynasty. What are your thoughts there?
Sure. I think that players are what they are for the most part, that there's not going to be a significant shift year to year. We're talking like 100% increase or 100% decrease, like barring the worst possible outcomes. Like
Raheem Mostert and
Right.
CMC right here, right? Those are two
Right.
guys who just fell off a cliff between 2023 and 2024. McCaffrey from injury, Mostert just for a myriad of reasons. Also, he was dinged up, but those
Right.
two really stick out, those differences from year to year.
Absolutely. But that also gives us some confidence for the following year. Like looking at the trends of what McCaffrey has done in the 2 years prior, I'm okay with taking McCaffrey in round 1 and even in round 2 of our best ball right now. But we also we have historically seen McCaffrey just right from the injuries.
Right.
And best ball value rating does not take into account games missed. So it is kind of like points per game, but with weighted value added to the spike weeks.
Right.
So some of the things that I think are pretty interesting in terms of like players who fell most significantly. Like you look at, yes, McCaffrey dropped like 14, like difference. Why don't we sort by A to Z? So McCaffrey dropped the most last year in terms of best ball value rating. He went from 17.4 to 3. So you're probably thinking, like, what does 17.4 versus 3 mean? That means he gave you 17.4 points every week toward your 150 in your starting lineup. Versus in 2024, he only gave you 3 points towards your 150 every week toward your 150. That's a stark difference.
Right.
So like
another guy fell off a cliff. Mike
Well,
Williams.
what do you notice about the biggest fallers? Like McCaffrey, Mostert, ETN, all running backs. And then you go to Williams and Hill, age apex wide receivers, post-age apex wide receivers. You have Pacheco, injury. Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, age apex wide receivers, like post-age apex. Brandon Ayuk, injury. Dak Prescott, injury. Donta Foreman had a heck of a season in 2023, but post-age apex.
Right.
Tank Dell, injury. Debo Samuel, injury. CJ Stroud is an interesting one. There were, in fact, 45 quarterbacks with a best ball value rating greater than CJ Stroud's in 2024.
0.18, dude. That is so crazy. Like, that's, if I'm translating for the common folk, drafting him was like a league losing decision.
It was virtually a zero. Like drafting him was essentially a zero spot in your best ball lineup. And he was being drafted very high. His best ball value rating in 2023 was only a modest 5.4. Like, for context, in 2024, like, you have Josh Allen at 11.
Right. As opposed to CJ Stroud's 0.18.
Jaden Daniels was 8.5. Okay, like, yeah, whereas CJ Stroud, gosh, it was disaster zone. So can he bounce back? I think the answer is yes, but it's probably going to be a limited ceiling anyways. Like we saw it at 5.4. Was
somewhere in between
really good,
two, right?
Yeah. So even if it's halfway between, it's like a 2. I'm not drafting lots of CJ Stroud this year.
Right.
And so that's like, so look at some of the biggest fallers. They're either injured running backs or age apex wide receivers. Now, if we flip it Z to A, let's make sure that it actually counts, right? Some of the biggest risers. So Chase Brown, Chris Godwin, Jawan Jennings, J.K. Dobbins. What do you notice about those, Johnny?
You got a young running back. You have Chris Godwin, who's setting the world on fire before the injury. Jawan Jennings, who kind of, I don't know, he's a bit of an oddball to me out of that group. And then,
well, the 2 years prior, Jennings was 0.06
right?
and 0.09. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I could talk about Jawan Jennings all day just because it's like, I think he's always, like, the talent didn't really change a whole lot, but the production did,
Mm-hmm. So I think that looking at a couple of players who rose a lot from 2023 to 2024, I have a lot of confidence in J.K. Dobbins. He had a 5.95 best ball value rating in 2022. He was injured all of 2023, and then he came back from the injury and was at 7.8. Like, so he's probably in the like 6 to 7 range type of player. And now he's on Denver, where we have seen running backs coexist. Like under Sean Payton, multiple top 20 running backs. So even best case scenario outcome for RJ Harvey is that he sets the world on fire, becomes Alvin Kamara 2.0.
Right.
But Mark Ingram was still there. Worst case scenario for RJ Harvey is that J.K. Dobbins becomes a massive, massive value and takes on a little bit of the pass catching work and takes on the first and second down role. We've seen that historically for J.K. Dobbins to be a player that is making a difference. He's adding between 6 and 8 fantasy points in half point scoring per week toward your 150. That's like toward your 150. So toward a winning team. That's a good amount. The other player is Jerry Jeudy. 7.3 best ball value rating 2022, 7.6 in 2024. So yeah, he rose a lot, but remember, Denver was disaster zone in 2023. He gets a new landing spot, gets a new home, and he gets a new role on Cleveland, right? He is playing majority on the outside. They're using him in a different way. And what did Cleveland do this offseason? Nothing. If anything, they traded the rights to draft Travis Hunter, who would have impacted Jerry Jeudy. So there's confidence that it's Jeudy as the number one receiver. So we should have confidence in Dobbins as a nice value later in drafts and Jerry Jeudy as a player who's going to hold his value.
Yeah, you see, when you bring up Jerry Jeudy, that's an interesting one because his best ball value rating in 2022 and 2024 aren't that different, right? So 2023 is kind of the outlier year, and you can basically have some confidence that 2023 or 2024 wasn't a fluke, right? And I think he's just such an interesting one because he's a guy who's like going as wide receiver 38, wide receiver 40, something in that range.
Such an easy click.
Right. So I love this. We are going to take a very, very quick break, but then we're going to get into some of the guys who have the best ball value ratings in 2024, guys that you've tweeted about, and you've got some really interesting data points on. So don't go anywhere.
If you play in Dynasty, you need Dynasty Deluxe, our premium package for Dynasty Leaguers. We rank over 300 players, updated every week, all year long. And there's a win now mode and a rebuild mode with Superflex and tight end premium controls. And a Dynasty League sync where you can say, sync down all of my sleeper teams, all my FFPC teams. And then you can browse around your leagues for who has needs. And then you can use our trade finder to see what kinds of trades are happening in leagues that are similar to the one I want to do. Then you can analyze trades using our trade analyzer, which balances the lifetime value, which includes picked values out to like 2028. All of that plus the rookie guide $25 value is included. So if you're just in one Dynasty League, Dynasty Deluxe is well worth it. And use your host's promo code and you can bump up to all in and get $25 off.
Awesome stuff. You've got to go all in if you're going with the player profiler package. Bradley and I, we both contributed to the draft guide, which is out now. That's part of the all in package. You get Dynasty Deluxe, data analysis, all that good stuff. So let's go back and kind of, I was teasing it before that promo real quick, like a guy, I'm just not going to bury it anymore, that you tweeted about, who I know is high up on best ball value rating in 2024, T. Higgins, man. Like, this is a guy who had frustrated me in years past just with like his inability to stay healthy. He's almost like the James Conner of wide receivers. You're never going to chalk him up for a full 17 games, but the spike weeks were insane in 2024. Can you talk a little bit more about T. Higgins? Do you see him being a value? His ADP this year in best balls and in most even, redraft dynasty leagues, it's all kind of priced the same, where he's like a 2-3 turn pick, right? So talk to me a little bit more about T. Higgins and your level of confidence in him based on the best ball value rating.
Johnny, last year, there were 2 players who had a rate of top 5 wide receiver weeks that exceeded 20%. There were only 2 wide receivers,
Crazy.
just 2 in the entire NFL. 20% of the time or more were 22.7 points in half-point scoring or
In
more.
half-point scoring.
In
22
half-point.
Yeah, that's a pretty good
22.7.
gain. Yeah.
That is week winning. That is he's your wide receiver 1 for the week. The one of them is Jamar Chase. The other is T. Higgins, his teammate.
That is
So,
crazy.
yeah, we're here for that. So when T. Higgins hits, he hits hard. He hits hard. There is only one other wide receiver who hits harder than him, and it's Jamar Chase. And the other part is that T. Higgins last year, 61% of the time was at least a flex play for you. He was 4.5% of the time a top 10, not a top 5, but so between top 5 and top 10. He was between wide receiver 10 and wide receiver 18 nearly 30% of the time. So we're talking something like 55% of the time, he was a top 18 wide receiver. Objectively, this is not like, oh, well, he was this or that, or some teams were on buys that week, blah, blah, blah. Like, because we know how that ranking goes. We want an objective, like, how would this player have played across the board? And T. Higgins crushed. He absolutely crushed last year. And my projections this year mimic that. What has changed in Cincinnati?
Their
Nothing.
defense got worse, so they're probably going to have to play more catch up and more shootouts.
They're rolling out Mike Gesicki again. They're rolling out Andre Yoshivas again. Jermaine Burton's not a thing. It's going to be the Chase Higgins show in massive shootout games. The Baltimore Ravens are good, right?
Gonna have to play them
the Bengals
twice.
They gotta play them twice. The Steelers, they're gonna be so slow, but those are always grudge matches.
Right.
Chase and Higgins they want to beat the snot out of each other. The Browns they're interesting. They could be well coached on defense, but the offense is a wild card. Cincinnati is in a great position to repeat just a massive output in terms of fantasy scoring. And historically, T. Higgins has been that player. So let's pull up the best ball value rating tracker for Higgins, right? Yeah. So in 2022, Higgins was a 7.43. Okay. 7.43. We'll pull him up near the top. In 2023, and remember, these don't include games missed for injury, but they do include games left early for injury. Right. And that's why he's kind of penalized a little bit in 2022 and 2023, because there were multiple games each season that he left early due to injury. So yeah, it's frustrating. That didn't happen in 2024. Yeah, he missed a little bit, but he didn't leave early enough to be that detrimental. So yes, he was one of the bigger risers with an increase of 5, but he's historically given you between 6 and 8 toward the best ball value rating. And like, for context, last year, between 6 and 8 would be something like a Devonta Smith output, like a Garrett Wilson from last year, like a Cortland Sutton from last year. Like, those are respectable. And that's what we've seen as the floor for T. Higgins. His ceiling puts him in the same conversation as Amon-Ra St. Brown production from a week-to-week basis. In fact, last year, T. Higgins had a better best ball value rating than Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I have him. I'm looking at this real quick. It's the third wide receiver, right? You've got Jamar Chase, Chris Godwin, who did not play as many games, right? And really,
right.
I mean, that's such a small sample size for Godwin that I think it kind of skews that data just a little bit, right?
Because look at what Godwin did in the previous seasons. He was at a 6 and a 3.7. So he's probably, a 4, 5, 6, 7 type of player, somewhere in there. And he had some massive games. So Godwin probably this year is going to go down back to like a 5 best ball value rating with a Mika Egbuka and Mike Evans still there. Like that's a reasonable, this is where you can use those gauges to see how are the spike weeks historically, and what other factors are at play. Because you didn't have competition, right? Evans missed games. That's why Chris Godwin got a lot of love. You saw McMillan miss games.
Yeah, Godwin, very interesting stuff, man. I absolutely, like I said, I'm drooling at the work you do on this. Talk to me when because you and I are in maybe 2 dynasty leagues together. So you probably are holding your cards to your chest a little bit when I ask you this next question, but are you using the best ball value rating at all when you're looking at like trade targets, trade evaluations in dynasty?
Loosely. Like I like to use the best ball value rating as like a range of outcomes ultimately. Like because we know what the spike week ceilings can tell us. Many people are like, what are the ranges of outcomes for like a player's weekly score? That's less interesting. What's more interesting is what is the range of outcomes for their spike weeks? Like where have they spiked historically? And that's what's interesting to me. It's one of the reasons why, for instance, you should, unless we see something different, you should be selling AJ Brown in Dynasty. Like you should be moving on. He's historically, over the last, like in 2022 and 2023, he was at a 10 and virtually a 10. And then last year, 8.4. This is a player who is starting to be on the wrong side of the age apex, has a history of significant knee issues. There's no shift in what's happening in Philadelphia, and the market values him pretty well. So this is a player that he's like a sell high, quiet sell high.
You heard it here first. Dynasty Deep Dive, best ball value rating. Bradley Stalder says AJ Brown is toast.
They're gonna clip that for the socials, right?
Oh, I literally made a little mark in my notes. Like, okay, we got some bold takes coming out, and I'm here for it. I think this is great stuff, man. I want to talk through guys who aren't on this list at all because they're rookies, right?
Sure.
And a couple of names that when I think of spike weeks and I think of guys that are some like, later round picks, not the major names you know of. The 2 that come to mind are guys like Deontay Thornton with the Raiders, right? Any given week, he could catch a house call with that 4.3 speed. I think it's a 4.3 flat too. Like a lot of guys will call him 4.3, but like Ladd McConkey says he's a 4.3. He's a 4.39. This Deontay Thornton is a 4.3 all day. And then Brashard Smith is another interesting one for me. And then I'll even throw out Taj Brooks on there as just a guy who it looks like your projections have a guy like Taj Brooks having a higher best ball value rating than Cortland Sutton or Colston Loveland, I meant to say. Am I reading that correctly?
That's correct.
Talk to me.
I think it's a twofold take. One is that I'm very low on Colston Loveland this year. The issue is that the Chicago Bears have so many mouths to feed.
Right.
And it's not just mouths to feed in general. It is a Cole Kmet issue. Like Cole Kmet is an established professional NFL tight end historically who has hit his spike weeks. He's had some spike weeks.
Yep.
And he went to the University of Notre Dame. Go Irish. So
I knew that was coming, man.
So here's the thing. Year 1, like it just makes sense that Cole Kmet is going to be the guy for the majority of the season. Now, will the Bears want to do some experiments? Will they want to manufacture some touches for the first round tight end? Absolutely. But this is not a Sam Laporta situation. There was not a Cole Kmet on the Lions roster during the Laporta rookie year. Cole Kmet is not a zero. He is second round draft capital historically, who has been loved by this city. He's well respected in the locker room.
He got, what I mean? He's got a contract.
This is the last year of his contract. And so they have no incentive to rush out Colson Loveland. He's dealing with a significant shoulder issue that's been bothering him since January. He's had surgery on it. He missed all of the mini camps, the rookie mini camps. He did nothing. Colson Loveland is a solid dynasty target, but is a massive redraft fade for me.
Interesting. Talk to me about maybe any of the rookies in the later rounds that I didn't call out that you may have higher than those guys. I see Alik Ayomanor higher, and he's getting drafted after Deontay Thornton.
I mean, barely. Like the haggling.
Yeah, these are very minuscule amounts, right?
Like Jaden Blue, I have projected at like 2.2 best ball value rating. Let me scroll and see if there's some interest. So like GJ Giddens is 2.87. He's like ahead of Adam Thielen, ahead of Jaden Higgins in terms of best ball value rating, partly because of the contingency,
right? If
Taylor
is to miss time
that he offers. And maybe I'm a little low on Jaden Higgins, but I'm also very bullish on Nico Collins. And you heard that I was low and probably going to be low on CJ Stroud again, relative to, he's not going to be a major bounce back type of player. I'm going to have to move down Jack Besh. This is a player that I should be moving down. The reports are that Thornton is playing ahead of him. So, and Thornton, I love Thornton. This is like my guy, like Dante Thornton. I've been tweeting about him ever since the combine because he is a dude, a beast. He's massive. You can't teach what he has.
Right.
So, Luther Burden is at a 3.69 projected best ball value rating, just behind Emeka Egbuka at 3.92.
Yep. Which is kind of close to where Godwin had been historically, right?
Yes.
And I think he's someone who, on the last show I mentioned, I'm like, this guy could make an impact in year one. And I think this kind of alludes to that, having him in a bucket of guys like Josh Downs, TJ Hawkinson, right? Like the level of value that he can add to your roster is there, right? Well, I see Bashal Tootin up there as well.
Oh yeah, Tootin is a
big Tootin guy.
Pre combine, I was a Tootin guy, and then everyone caught up. I went on Man versus Machine, and I told Ryan Reynolds, I said, Ryan, you need to know the name Bashal Tootin. And he was like, who? I don't even do my film analysis yet until after the combine. I'm like, Bashal Tootin. And then what happens during the combine? Bashal Tootin sets it on fire, and everyone's like, oh, Bashal Tootin, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I've been there, done that. I got my Bashal Tootin pre-NFL draft shares. I'm all set. I'm not going to buy into, he was last round clicks. He was,
you were getting him at the very, very end, and now he's ballooned in ADP, right?
Yeah. So I want to take a moment. I know you want to talk about rookies, but
let's
talk about a rookie that was last year and a player that I was pretty low on. And will continue to be, relatively speaking, pretty low on Rome Odunze. People are like really projecting Rome Odunze to be like the guy and move away from like DJ Moore, that, Luther Burden. There's going to be, a lot of, there's been a lot of love for Rome Odunze.
100%.
And I can't get behind it.
A lot of mouths to feed there.
Well, to pay off his ADP, 2025 Odunze would have to have similar production to these wide receivers from 2024. Jameson Williams, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Devonta Smith, and Jerry Jeudy. We already talked about many of these players who played very well. But then last year in 2024, these are some of the wide receivers who had a better best ball value rating than Rome Odunze. Are you ready, Johnny?
I'm all ears.
Tyrell Shavers, DeMarcus Robinson,
That's my
Marquez
guy.
Valdez Scantling, Kayshawn Booty, Nick Westbrook-Akine, Jalen Coker. These players had better best ball value ratings than Rome Odunze in 2024. His BBVR was 2.2, which means he contributed 2.2 points every week to your 150. Virtually nothing. Among 16 players who had a BBVR between 2 and 3 in 2023, only 4 of them had a BBVR greater than 5 in 2024. The average was a 2.9. So the average player only really moved less than 1 point the next year. Now, maybe you're arguing, well, Rome is a wide receiver. Maybe it's weighted differently. The average best ball value rating for all wide receivers in that range was 0.43. 0.43. So no, there's just a lot of negative signals about Rome Odunze historically making the jump. Another data point, there were 299 players who registered a best ball value rating in 2024. Only 16 of them made the jump that Odunze will have to make. That's 5.3%.
Interesting. And just to be clear, when you bring up those guys like Shavers and Scantling, like this is throwing ADP at the wind. They BBVR, right? It's not taking into account, oh, because you were picking him at 70 and them at 210, they're a better value. It's
No.
like, no, ADP.
The value is the spike weeks that
Yeah.
it offers toward your winning.
Right.
So Odunze is not going to be a 0 this year, but he's historically, like, his type of player has been a bad bet to pay off ADP.
Talk to me about the guy ahead of him on here, Dylan Gabriel. Is that your call out for?
No, it's just I project one game and he'll give 4 points in that one game. So yeah, it's nothing crazy. It's a
Okay.
per game sort of thing. So no.
Okay.
Nothing crazy there. But we can scroll up a little bit and we can see Cam Scatabo and RJ Harvey right next to each other. That's interesting.
That is interesting. And then Kittle down there is kind of interesting to me as well.
Yeah, the best. Let's look at just sorting by tight ends
and where he stacks up.
Right. So Kittle is the tight end 4.
Okay. And you like Njoku.
Oh, I love Njoku.
Oh yeah, man. This is you're in a safe space.
Let's go, baby.
Very cool stuff, man. So let's close it out. Kind of final question is like, what's, the question that I had on the show sheet is what's next for best ball value rating, right? And it seems like you're kind of showing it to us, right? Like some historical year-over-year comparisons is something I hadn't even thought of that you're just now putting me on right now live on this show. And then 2025 projections, we're looking at them, folks. Maybe close us out with like some of the guys at the top of the list and who maybe one or two we can call out that might be, interesting.
So because it values spike weeks and it values, quarterbacks that run the ball a lot, it can be weighted very heavily. It loves Jaden Daniels. The model loves Jaden Daniels this year as like the 4th overall player. Yeah. It's not been uncommon to see multiple quarterbacks be in the top 12, be in the top 15 of best ball value rating because of what they offer for their positional value. So some of the players that are nice and high in this list, Bijan is at 3. Justin Jefferson is very high in this list.
Is he number 1?
He is the number 1 best projected best ball value rated player.
So you have no concerns with McCarthy rolling in there. And
I am so pro McCarthy. Like
I've got him in that dynasty league, and I think you need a quarterback.
Maybe I need a quarterback. We'll see. But Rashee Rice, is a player that I did dock him a game, but on a per game basis, looks like he's still going to be very, very good. So looking at like the top 12 of best ball value rated players this year, in projections, Jefferson, Barkley, Bijan, Jaden Daniels, Jamar Chase, Nico Collins, T. Higgins is up there, Lad McConkey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Rashee Rice, Josh Allen, CeeDee Lamb. So the nice thing is you don't draft these players at, you're up in round 1 and you're going to take Jaden Daniels. No, you're going to take Jaden Daniels often. That's what the indicator tells you, is that
Right.
the spike weeks are there and you're going to be able to fit in a nice solid rock into that knapsack and fill the knapsack nicely. There's operations research for you. Look up the knapsack problem there, Johnny.
I won't, but no, I love it, man. I think this is super cool. And again, for me, I think the lens for Dynasty here is, at the end of the day, like, yeah, consistency keeps you in the hunt, but tracking upside is how you win championships, right? These guys that you have called out here, I would be a fool to not believe that they're all highly associated with winning dynasty rosters. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, really great having you on the show. Thank you for letting us get a peek behind the veil into the data set, man. I mean, like, this is just so cool to me, just to see the level of, like, I knew it went deep with you, man. I think you might have gone deeper than the deep dive even leads on to go. So really great work. Close us out, man. Tell people where they can find you, where they can keep up with you, any plugs you want to give.
Man versus Machine, Stack Hunters, and check out the news desk, playerprofiler.com/news, Player Profiler Now Plus Network. Check out the videos that are on there. And of course, like, if you are playing on Fast Draft, here's the cool thing. You go to Fast Draft on the app, you make sure your app is refreshed, you're ready to roll, and then you look at the bottom of the app and it says live results. And what loads in the live results? Oh, it's the news desk. It's all the news that you need to stay on top of all of the fantasy things that will make or break your season. So check out the news desk, check out Fast Draft, check out all the things. Johnny, it's been great chatting with you.
Awesome, man. I love those plugs. I'll say, yeah, last kind of leaving note on my end. This is gold for Fast Draft too, right? This is because that's a best ball format. And so while I tried to put this through the lens of Dynasty, I think the best ball folks should be clinging to this episode with, their hands gripped around it as tight as they can. And there's a lot of money to be won in Fast Draft. There's a lot of money to be won in best ball. And there's a lot of clout to be won in your dynasty leagues by understanding Bradley's best ball value rating. So thanks for joining the show. If you liked this show, give it a thumbs up. Leave us any comments. Bradley is a man of the people and is happy to elaborate. I'm signing him up for it. He will get in those comments and he will follow up with you if you have questions. And then subscribe to the Player Profiler page. We're going to keep awesome content like this coming forever. So take care, everyone. Good luck winning your fantasy leagues.